The rain fell in sheets over Seattle's empty streets, transforming the city lights into a kaleidoscope of reflections. Sarah Chen pulled her jacket tighter as she made her final rounds of the night through the homeless shelter's perimeter. After 15 years as an emergency response social worker, she thought she'd seen everything. That was before the flash of purple light caught her eye from the abandoned warehouse across the street. Something about the light's movement seemed deliberate, almost like a signal. Sarah hesitated, her hand hovering over the radio at her belt. Protocol said to call it in, but years of experience had taught her that sometimes protocol could do more harm than good. She crossed the street, her footsteps masked by the downpour. The warehouse's metal door creaked as she eased it open. "Hello. Anyone in here? I'm a social worker. I'm here to help." Her voice echoed through the vast space, bouncing off rusted machinery and water-stained walls. The purple light flickered again, weaker this time, coming from behind a stack of wooden pallets. Sarah moved closer, her phone's flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. A soft whimper stopped her in her tracks. It wasn't human. The sound had too many harmonics, like several voices layered together. She rounded the pallets and froze. Huddled on the floor were two figures that defied explanation. The larger one was clearly feminine in form, but her skin had a translucent quality that seemed to shift between deep purple and midnight blue. Delicate markings that looked like constellations traced patterns across her face and arms. Beside her, clutching what appeared to be a stuffed toy made of light, was a child of the same species, no more than 6 or 7 by human standards. The adult's eyes opened, all 3 of them, revealing pupils that sparkled like captured starlight. "Please," she whispered in perfect English, though her mouth didn't move. The words seemed to form directly in Sarah's mind. "They'll find us." Sarah's training kicked in, overriding her shock. She knelt slowly, keeping her movements calm and deliberate. "You're hurt," she said, noting the way the alien woman cradled her side, where a darker purple patch spread like a bruise. "Let me help you." "The hunters," the alien woman managed, her mental voice growing weaker. "They track quantum signatures. Can't mask much longer." The child whimpered again, pressing closer to her mother. Sarah made a decision that would change not just her life, but the course of human history. "Can you walk?" "My apartment is 3 blocks away." Off-grid solar, lead-lined walls from the old radiation shelter in the basement. Would that help? The alien woman's relief flooded Sarah's mind like a warm wave. Yes. The lead would mask us, but helping us is dangerous. The hunters don't care about collateral damage. "I've spent my life helping people society would rather forget," Sarah said, offering her hand. "I'm not stopping now just because you're from a little further away than usual." The alien child looked up at Sarah, and a series of images flashed through her mind. Running, hiding, the terror of pursuit, but also the wonder of seeing Earth for the first time. The hope that this strange world might offer sanctuary. The depth of emotion in those mental images brought tears to Sarah's eyes. "I'm Sarah," she said gently. "What should I call you?" "In your language, I am Lyra," the mother responded. "My daughter is Nova." She struggled to stand, leaning heavily against the pallets. "We are Stellarim. Once we were scholars and explorers, until the Dominion decided our empathic abilities made us too dangerous to exist freely." Sarah helped support Lyra's weight, while Nova clutched her mother's free hand. "Well, the Dominion clearly hasn't met many humans yet," she said grimly. "We tend to have strong opinions about genocide." She guided them toward the door, checking the street was clear. "Let's get you somewhere safe, then we can figure out next steps." As they made their way through the rain, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. She had contacts in various NGOs, friends in local government, even a cousin who worked at the UN. This wouldn't be easy, but humans have been fighting for refugees' rights for centuries. The fact that these refugees came from another star system didn't change the fundamental principle. Nova stumbled, and Sarah automatically reached out to steady her. The moment their hands touched, she felt the child's fear give way to something else. Hope, mixed with fascination. Images of Earth's cities, oceans, and most of all its people flashed through her mind. She saw humanity through Nova's eyes, a species that built monuments to beauty alongside machines of industry, that fought wars but also created art, that looked up at the stars with wonder instead of fear. They reached Sarah's apartment building just as Lyra's strength began to fail. The old service elevator groaned as it carried them to the top floor. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she unlocked her door, ushering them inside. As soon as they crossed the threshold, both aliens seemed to relax slightly. The lead helps, Lyra confirmed, sinking onto Sarah's couch. But they'll notice our signature has vanished. They'll start searching manually. Her form flickered slightly, the pretense of solidity fading to reveal more of the starlight quality beneath. We've put you in danger. You're not the first people I'd hidden from those who would harm them, Sarah said firmly, drawing the blinds and pulling out her first aid kit. Though I admit, my experience with alien physiology is a bit limited. Can you tell me more about your injury? As Lyra explained the basics of stellarium biology, a fascinating mix of matter and energy that humans had barely theorized might be possible, Sarah's mind was already working on next steps. She'd need to call in favors, set up a secure communication network, find others willing to help. The hunters would be looking for 2 aliens, but they'd find themselves facing something far more formidable: human compassion, backed by human ingenuity. Nova had wandered to the window, peering out at the city lights through a gap in the blinds. "Pretty," she whispered, her mental voice carrying a child's wonder. "Like home stars." "Those lights represent people, Nova," Sarah said softly. "Millions of them, each with their own stories, their own desire to help others. You're not alone anymore." She turned to Lyra. "Rest now. Tomorrow, we start building you a real sanctuary." As she watched the alien child marvel at her first close view of human civilization, Sarah felt a fierce determination take root. The universe had just become a much larger, more dangerous place, but also one filled with new possibilities for connection and justice. Whatever came next, she knew humanity would rise to the challenge. It's what they did best. Sarah woke to the sound of quiet humming, a complex, multi-layered melody that seemed to dance at the edge of human hearing. She found Nova sitting cross-legged on the apartment's small balcony, safely behind the lead-lined privacy screens. The alien child was making tiny points of light dance between her fingers while she hummed. "It's a learning song," Lyra explained from the kitchen doorway, her form slightly more solid than the previous night. "Among our people, children learn stellar navigation through music and light." She paused, a wave of sadness emanating from her. "Or they did, before the purges began." Sarah handed Lyra a cup of tea, having learned that while the stellarium didn't need human food, they could absorb energy from hot liquids. "Tell me more about what we're up against. The more I know, the better I can help." Lyra's 3 eyes dimmed slightly. The Dominion spans thousands of systems. They believe in absolute control, achieved through technological superiority and strict hierarchies. Species like mine, with natural abilities they can't easily replicate or control, are seen as threats. She sipped the tea, her form brightening slightly. The hunters are their elite enforcement arm, part police, part military, all ruthless. But they're operating on Earth in secret, Sarah pointed out, which means they don't have official permission to be here. We can use that. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Nova stopped humming, her lights vanishing instantly. Sarah moved silently to the security panel she'd installed years ago for other refugees. The camera showed a familiar face. Dr. James Martinez, her friend from the university's xenobiology department. "It's okay," she assured her guests. "He's the first part of our network." She opened the door to reveal James, his arms full of medical equipment and barely contained excitement. "Sarah, you're either crazy or about to make history," he said, stepping inside. Then he saw Lyra and Nova, and for once, the talkative professor was speechless. "Probably both," Sarah admitted. Lyra, Nova, this is James. He's brilliant, trustworthy, and has been theorizing about life forms like you for years. Actually existing energy-matter hybrid sentience, James breathed, setting down his equipment. Your quantum structure must be incredible. The implications for physics alone. He caught himself, noting Lyra's protective stance in front of Nova. But first, let's look at that injury. Over the next hour, James's scientific curiosity gave way to genuine concern as he documented Lyra's wound, caused by some kind of quantum disruption weapon. He rigged a modified electromagnetic field generator that seemed to ease her pain and help her maintain physical form more easily. The hunters will have better scanning technology than anything on Earth, Lyra warned as James worked. And they'll be watching for unusual energy signatures. Then we'll have to be smarter, not just technologically, but socially, Sarah said. She pulled up a secure messaging app on her phone. I've got a contact at the Electronic Frontier Foundation who can help us set up secure communications. James, how many of your colleagues would be willing to help if they knew the stakes? More than you'd think, James replied, adjusting the field generator. The university's quantum physics lab has been detecting weird anomalies for months. I bet they've been tracking hunter ships without realizing it. If we can prove what's happening. No, Lyra interrupted firmly. Exposure too dangerous. The Dominion would rather destroy Earth's technological infrastructure than reveal themselves. Then we go grassroots, Sarah decided. Underground railroad style. Small cells, minimal electronic communication, maximum deniability. She looked at Nova, still watching the city through the window. There must be other refugees like you out there. If we can create a network of safe houses. James nodded slowly. I know people who know people. Astronomers who've seen things they can't explain. Engineers who've detected impossible signals. Even some military contacts who might help off the record. The hunters rely on fear and isolation. Lyra observed. They've never failed to track down their targets because no one dares to help. A gentle light pulsed from her form. But humans, you're different. You see someone in need, and you just help. It's one of our better qualities, Sarah smiled. Though it often goes along with our tendency to punch up at bullies, no matter how big they are. The rest of the day was spent making preparations. James brought specialized equipment, disguised as normal medical devices. Sarah's EFF contact sent encrypted communication protocols. A friendly architect provided plans for lead-line safe rooms that could be built under the guise of home renovations. But their time was running out. That evening, Nova suddenly stiffened, her lights flickering in distress. Hunters, she whispered. 3 ships entering atmosphere. Lyra pulled her daughter close. They're starting the ground search. They'll go sector by sector, scanning for any trace of our quantum signature. Sarah's phone buzzed. A news alert about unusual meteor activity over the Pacific Northwest. How long do we have? Days, maybe less, Lyra said. They're methodical, but thorough. And they'll start with major population centers. Then we need to move fast. Sarah pulled up a secure messaging app she used for her refugee work. I know people in Vancouver who can help. Remote cabins, off the grid, plenty of natural lead deposits in the mountains. She looked at James. Can you get your hands on more field generators like this one? He nodded. Give me 48 hours. I'll tell my department it's for a quantum containment experiment. Not even technically a lie. I can't ask you to risk yourselves further. Lyra protested, but Sarah cut her off. You're not asking. We're offering. Because that's who we are. She knelt in front of Nova. Hey kiddo, how do you feel about a camping trip? Nova's response was a burst of mental images. Trees, stars, hope tinged with worry. Sarah caught a glimpse of other children like her, hiding on other worlds, and understood that this was about more than just 2 refugees. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity wouldn't stand by while innocent people were persecuted. The Dominion thinks they know all about Earth from their long-range scans, Sarah said, checking her go bag and emergency supplies. But they've missed the most important thing about humans. What's that? Nova asked, her mental voice curious. We're really good at proving people wrong about what's possible. Sarah smiled, especially when they tell us we can't do something. As night fell over Seattle, plans were set in motion. Messages passed through secure channels. Resources were gathered. A network of helpers began to awaken, each playing their small part in a larger defiance. The hunters were about to learn that Earth wouldn't be like other worlds they'd visited. Here, they wouldn't find easy prey. They'd find humanity in all its stubborn, compassionate glory. The old mining tunnel was a maze of shadows, its rough walls glistening with moisture. Sarah led the way with a red-filtered flashlight, chosen because it would be harder for orbital scanners to detect. Behind her, Lyra and Nova moved silently, their natural bioluminescence dimmed to near invisibility. Dr. Martinez brought up the rear, carrying a modified field generator that helped mask their quantum signatures. They'd been on the move for 3 days, staying ahead of the hunters' systematic grid search of the Pacific Northwest. The network of helpers had grown beyond Sarah's wildest expectations. Truckers who provided transportation without asking questions, hikers who reported hunter search patterns via seemingly innocent trail condition updates, ham radio operators passing coded messages through the static. Movement ahead, Lyra whispered in their minds. Sarah immediately doused the light. In the darkness, Nova's fear rippled through their shared mental space like a cold wind. Heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnel, accompanied by a high-pitched whine that made Sarah's teeth ache. She recognized it from Lyra's descriptions: quantum disruption rifles, capable of tearing apart the unique structure of stellar bodies. 2 hunters, full tactical gear, Lyra reported silently. They're following our residual trace. The field generator helps, but we still leave faint signs they can track. Sarah pressed against the tunnel wall, feeling the rough stone against her back. The hunters were between them and their exit point, where a local caving club was supposed to meet them with supplies. They'd have to find another way out. The footsteps grew closer. In the darkness, Sarah could just make out the silhouettes of the hunters. Tall, armored figures with helmets that gleamed with complex scanning equipment. She held her breath, knowing their quarry's survival depended on complete stillness. A burst of static came through the hunters' comms. Sector 7 clear, a metallic voice reported. Moving to sweep Sector 8. The lead hunter paused, directly opposite their hiding spot. Negative, it responded. Residual quantum signature detected in this sector. Faint, but consistent with target patterns. Sarah's hand tightened on the device in her pocket, a last resort option she'd hoped not to use. James had cobbled it together from university lab equipment, warning that it would only work once. The hunter took another step toward them. Nova trembled, and a tiny spark of light escaped her control. The hunter's head snapped toward them, weapon raising. Sarah squeezed the device. Every electronic system in the tunnel, including the hunter's equipment, screamed with feedback. The armored figures staggered, their weapons dropping as they clutched their helmets. Sarah had just enough time to see James activate his modified field generator at full power, creating a momentary screen of quantum noise. "Run," she shouted. They bolted past the disoriented hunters, Sarah grabbing Nova while Lyra and James sprinted ahead. Behind them, the hunters were already recovering, their angry shouts echoing through the tunnel. They emerged into twilight, but instead of their caving club contacts, they found an empty clearing. Sarah's heart sank as she heard the whine of more disruption rifles powering up. 3 more hunters stepped out of the tree line, weapons trained on them. "Impressive adaptability," the lead hunter said, its metallic voice almost appreciative. "No species has ever managed to shelter Stellarum fugitives for this long. But it ends here. The human authorities have been informed of your interference with a legitimate peacekeeping operation. They'll be focusing on the unauthorized equipment you've been constructing. Quite illegal under your own laws, I believe. Sarah felt a surge of despair from Lyra, but it was Nova's terror that hardened her resolve. She stepped forward, placing herself between the hunters and their quarry. "You really don't understand humans at all, do you?" she said, buying time as she noticed movement in the trees behind the hunters. "You think because you have superior technology and can pressure our governments, we'll just roll over. Your species is primitive," the hunter replied, "barely capable of lunar colonization. The only reason we don't simply take what we want is that Earth is classified as a developing world, protected by certain treaties." Sarah smiled. "Primitive, right. That's why you didn't notice the real reason we chose this location." The hunter's question was cut off by a deafening rumble. The ground beneath their feet began to shake. From the old mining tunnel came the sound of rushing water. "Fun fact about primitive human mining techniques," Sarah shouted over the noise. "We had to pump groundwater out constantly. Those pumps have been off for decades, but my friends at the local historical society were happy to fire them up again. Backwards compatible technology, you see. Really reliable." Water exploded from the tunnel entrance as centuries-old drainage systems roared back to life. The hunters scrambled to maintain their footing on the suddenly muddy ground. From the trees emerged members of the local search and rescue team, using their climbing gear to quickly evacuate Sarah's group while the hunters dealt with the impromptu flood. "Primitive doesn't mean simple," Sarah called back as they were pulled to safety. "It means we're really good at working with what we have." Minutes later, they were being rushed away in rescue vehicles, their quantum signatures masked by the lead lining that the search and rescue team used to shield their radiation detection equipment. Nova was laughing, generating tiny lights that danced like fireflies in the cabin. "They'll be even angrier now," Lyra warned, though Sarah could feel her relief. "They'll escalate." "Let them," Sarah replied, "because now we know something important. They're bound by treaties. They can't just invade Earth without consequences, which means there are others out there," James finished. "Other spacefaring races who might not approve of the Dominion's actions. If we can just get proof to the right people." Sarah nodded. "The hunters have to play by certain rules. We don't, and we got something they never expected to deal with: thousands of years of experience fighting guerrilla wars and running underground railroads." She looked at her phone, where messages were already coming in from other cells in the network. More refugee sightings, more humans willing to help, more creative solutions using Earth's primitive technology in ways the hunters couldn't predict. "We're not just hiding refugees anymore," she realized. "We're showing the galaxy what humanity really is. And maybe, just maybe, we're about to change how things work out here." Nova touched her hand, sharing a vision of stars and hope and connection. In the child's mind, Earth wasn't primitive at all. It was a beacon, showing that resistance was possible, that compassion could overcome fear. The hunters had made a crucial error. They had assumed that humanity's technological limitations would make them easy to intimidate. They hadn't counted on human ingenuity, on the power of small acts of rebellion multiplied across millions of people. They hadn't realized that by threatening innocent refugees, they had given humanity exactly the kind of cause that brought out their greatest strengths. The war for Earth's skies was about to begin in earnest, but this time, the hunters were about to become the hunted. The basement of Seattle's oldest library had always been a refuge for those seeking knowledge. Now, surrounded by rare books and forgotten archives, it served as something even more important: a secret meeting place for Earth's growing interstellar underground railroad. Sarah studied the holographic map floating above the table, projected from a device that would have been classified as impossible by Earth physics 3 months ago. It showed the positions of hunter ships in high orbit, their search patterns outlined in angry red lines. "They're frustrated," Lyra observed, her starlight form rippling with satisfaction. 6 refugee groups escaped their nets this week alone. They've never failed this consistently before. Dr. James Martinez adjusted his glasses, examining the quantum frequency readings on his tablet. The new masking technology is working better than we hoped. Turns out centuries of hiding people from government surveillance gave us a pretty good foundation for hiding them from alien surveillance too. The door opened, and Sarah's cousin Maya slipped in, still wearing her UN translator's badge. "You're going to want to hear this," she said, excitement clear in her voice. "The Hunters just filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Development Council. They're accusing Earth of unauthorized technological advancement and interference with peacekeeping operations. They're getting desperate." Sarah smiled. "How many other species have complained about them to the Council?" "3 so far," Maya replied, all saying the same thing, that the Dominion's actions on Earth violate primitive world protection treaties. The Hunters' heavy-handed response is drawing exactly the kind of attention they didn't want. A soft chime interrupted them, the signal that someone was approaching through the library's quantum-shielded service tunnel. Everyone tensed until they heard the correct knock pattern. Sarah opened the hidden door to reveal a sight that still amazed her. 2 more alien refugees, but these weren't Stellarum. The new arrivals were Meridians, their crystalline bodies refracting light in complex patterns. Behind them came their human guide, a Seattle dockworker named Chen who had discovered them hiding in a cargo container. "The Hunters almost had us in Vancouver," Chen reported, accepting a cup of coffee from James. "But the local hockey fans were having a riot over some controversial game call. Funny how those seem to happen whenever we need a distraction lately. Humans are remarkably good at coordinated chaos," one of the Meridians observed, their voice tinkling like wind chimes. "The Dominion's predictive algorithms can't account for it." Nova, who had been quietly practicing her light shaping in the corner, floated over to greet the new refugees. The Meridian child among them responded with their own light display, and soon the two were communicating in a language of pure luminescence. "That's 17 different refugee species we've helped now," James said, updating their secure database, each with their own story of how the Dominion's perfect order is really just sophisticated oppression. Sarah watched the alien children play, remembering how this had all started with just one act of compassion in a rainy warehouse. "Have you finished analyzing that data from the Hunter ship?" James nodded, pulling up complex equations on his tablet. "Their quantum tracking technology is incredible, but it has a fundamental flaw. They're so focused on detecting energy signatures that match known patterns, they completely miss anything that doesn't fit their models. That's why they keep losing refugees in urban areas. There's too much chaos, too many unexpected energy patterns from human technology. And now we know why they're really here," Maya added, spreading out diplomatic documents on the table. "The Dominion isn't just hunting refugees. They're trying to prevent Earth from developing any alliances with their opponents before we reach true spacefaring status. They know that once humanity has official contact with the galactic community, their behavior here would be exposed." A soft mental touch made Sarah turn. Lyra was projecting an image of a distant star system, where crystalline cities floated in space and beings of pure energy danced between them. "My homeworld," she explained, "before the Dominion decided that our natural abilities made us too unpredictable to control. They claimed we were a threat to galactic stability." "Because you could expose the truth about them through your empathic abilities," Sarah realized. Just like the Meridians could record and transmit evidence of their actions through their crystalline bodies, and other refugees could reveal different aspects of their corruption. "Precisely," the adult Meridian agreed. "But we never expected to find allies like humans. You're supposed to be primitive, focused only on your own survival." Instead, they gestured around the room, where ancient books sat next to quantum computers, where alien children played while humans planned interstellar resistance. "Instead, we're really good at surprising people," Sarah smiled. "Speaking of which, Maya, what did your UN contacts say about that proposal?" Maya's grin widened. "It's happening. 3 days from now, at the General Assembly." complete with leaked videos of hunter ships violating Earth airspace. Let's see the Dominion try to explain that to the Development Council. They'll claim it's fake, James warned. Earth shouldn't have the technology to record their ships. We don't, Sarah agreed. But you know what we do have? Thousands of astronomy enthusiasts with smartphones and telescopes, all capturing mysterious lights in the sky. Hard to claim it's all fake when it's coming from so many unconnected sources. A sudden alert from their quantum scanner interrupted the conversation. Nova and the Meridian Child stopped playing, both sensing the shift in energy patterns above the city. Multiple hunter ships entering atmosphere, Lyra reported, her form tensing. This is different. Their energy signatures are stronger. They're not trying to hide anymore. Good, Sarah said, sending out the alert through their network. That means they're getting reckless. Maya, how fast can you get those videos to the council? Already done, her cousin replied, fingers flying over her phone. And I just got confirmation. The council is convening an emergency session. Seems they're very interested in why the Dominion is violating multiple treaties regarding Earth. Outside, thunder rolled across Seattle's sky, but Sarah knew it wasn't weather. The hunters were done playing by the rules. But that was exactly what the resistance had been waiting for. They think they're calling our bluff, she said, watching the tactical display as hundreds of small signals showed their network activating across the globe. They haven't realized that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our defenses. What is it? The Meridian Child asked, their crystalline form sparkling with curiosity. Nova answered, her mental voice filled with the wonder she'd felt watching humans over the past months. They're really good at changing the rules of the game. Above them, the hunters prepared to demonstrate their power. But below, in basements and back rooms, in quiet neighborhoods and busy ports, humanity prepared to demonstrate something far more potent, their ability to unite, adapt, and fight back against impossible odds. The real war wasn't going to be won with quantum weapons or advanced technology. It would be won with smartphone videos and protest signs, with humanitarian aid and hidden sanctuaries, with thousands of small acts of defiance that added up to something the Dominion had never faced before, a primitive species that simply refused to accept their version of order. The United Nations General Assembly Hall hummed with tension. Maya stood at her translator station, watching as delegates from every nation on Earth filed in for what would become the most important session in human history. Above them, visible through the building's skylights, strange lights flickered in the New York sky. Hunter ships, no longer bothering to hide their presence. Sarah sat in the observer's gallery, flanked by James and several other members of their network. They'd chosen their seats carefully, positioning themselves near the building's lead-line support columns. Hidden throughout the chamber were dozens of modified quantum field generators, ready to protect their secret guests. Are you sure about this? Lyra's mental voice whispered. Though invisible to normal sight, she and Nova were there too, along with representatives from 12 other refugee species. Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The Dominion will respond with force. They're already planning to, Sarah replied silently, having grown used to mental communication. But they think they're just dealing with primitive humans harboring a few fugitives. They have no idea what's really coming. The Secretary General called the session to order, beginning with the official agenda, addressing evidence of unauthorized extraterrestrial activity in Earth's atmosphere. Videos began playing on the chamber screens. Countless clips from amateur astronomers, weather satellites, and smartphone cameras, all showing hunter ships violating Earth's airspace. Right on cue, the chamber's doors burst open. A delegation of hunters strode in, their armor gleaming under the lights. Behind them came representatives of the Dominion itself, tall, geometric beings whose bodies seemed to bend space around them. This session is a violation of primitive world protection treaties, the lead Dominion representative announced, their voice resonating with artificial authority. Earth has not yet achieved the technological or social development required for official contact. We are here merely to contain dangerous fugitives. Point of order, Maya interrupted, her voice clear through the translation system. Earth is invoking Article 7 of the Galactic Development Accords, the right to accelerated recognition in cases of external interference. The Dominion representative faltered. You cannot know about those accords. Your species has not been given access to. We know a lot of things we're not supposed to. Sarah stood, drawing their attention. Like how you've been using primitive world protection as a shield for your persecution of refugee species. How you hunt down anyone whose abilities or knowledge might threaten your control. These are internal Dominion security matters, a hunter growled. Humans cannot possibly understand. We understand perfectly, James cut in. We understand that you're bullies who picked Earth as a hunting ground because you thought we were too primitive to fight back. Your mistake wasn't underestimating our technology. He smiled. It was underestimating our humanity. Sarah nodded to Maya, who pressed a sequence on her console. Throughout the chamber, quantum field generators activated, not to hide their allies, but to protect them as they revealed themselves. Gasps filled the chamber as Lyra and Nova materialized in the gallery, their starlight forms brilliant under the lights. Around the room, other refugees appeared, meridians refracting light like living crystals, energy beings pulsing with color, and species Earth had no words to describe yet. The Galactic Development Council has been notified, Maya announced. They're receiving our transmission now, along with comprehensive evidence of Dominion Treaty violations, not just on Earth, but across 17 systems. The Dominion representatives' form distorted with rage. You dare. We dare. Sarah stepped forward. Because that's what humans do. We look at impossible odds and we dare to fight anyway. We see people in need, and we dare to help them. We face bullies who think they can write all the rules, and we dare to rewrite them. Through their mental link, Sarah felt waves of support and determination from not just Lyra and Nova, but from every refugee in the chamber. They shared visions of their homeworlds, of others still hiding, of hope rekindling across the galaxy. Earth is not ready for galactic civilization, the Dominion representative insisted. You are too chaotic, too unpredictable. That's exactly why we're ready, Sarah countered. Because we know chaos isn't always bad. Because we understand that true civilization isn't about perfect order. It's about how you treat those who are different from you. The chamber's screens flickered, showing new images. Refugee children being taught in human schools, alien scientists collaborating with Earth universities, a dozen species living and working together in hidden sanctuaries across the planet. Humanity has already made its choice, Sarah declared. We choose to stand with those you've tried to silence. We choose to fight for those you've tried to erase. And we choose to show the galaxy that there's another way, one that doesn't require sacrificing freedom for order. A new light filled the chamber, not from the refugees or the hunters' weapons, but from above. Through the skylights, they could see massive ships descending through Earth's atmosphere. But these weren't hunter vessels. Their designs were organic, crystalline, radiating with familiar energy patterns. The Stellar Confederation, Lyra breathed, joy radiating from her form. The free worlds who opposed Dominion expansion. They received our evidence. The hunters raised their weapons, but found themselves frozen as meridian crystals sprouted from the floor, trapping them in refracted light. The Dominion representatives backed away as more ships appeared in the sky. Ships of every description, representing species that had been watching, waiting for a chance to challenge Dominion authority. You see, Sarah said quietly, that's the real reason you didn't want Earth joining galactic civilization. Not because we're primitive, but because you knew that once we learned about what you were doing, we wouldn't stand for it. And neither would anyone else. Nova floated forward, her light joining with other refugee children, to create a dazzling display above the chamber. In their combined radiance, Sarah saw the future they'd been fighting for. Not just sanctuary for a few refugees, but a fundamental change in how the galaxy worked. The Secretary General stood, his voice steady. I believe Earth is ready to petition for full membership in the galactic community, not under Dominion authority, but as founding members of a new coalition, one dedicated to protecting the rights of all species, no matter how different they may be. As the chamber erupted in discussion and the sky filled with more ships, Sarah felt Lyra's gratitude wash over her. "You've changed everything," the Stellarum whispered. "Not with superior technology or weapons, but with the one thing the Dominion could never understand." "What's that?" Nova asked, though her mental tone suggested she already knew the answer. Sarah smiled, watching as human diplomats began meeting with representatives from a dozen alien species, as refugee children played with light and energy in the gallery, as the rigid order of the Dominion gave way to something new and wonderful. "The simple truth that being human isn't about where you're from or what you're made of," she said. "It's about choosing to help others, even when it's hard. About standing up to bullies, even when they seem unstoppable. About believing that the universe can be better than it is, and being willing to fight to make it that way." Above them, the New York sky had become a canvas of light and color, a celebration of difference and unity that could be seen from orbit. The Dominion's perfect order was giving way to something far more beautiful. A galaxy where chaos and harmony could coexist, where being different wasn't a crime, and where humanity's primitive compassion had lit a spark that would change everything. The real work was just beginning, but Earth was ready. They had already proven that they could face impossible odds, protect the vulnerable, and unite despite their differences. Now they would help build something unprecedented. A galactic civilization based not on control and fear, but on the simple, powerful truth that had started with one social worker helping 2 refugees on a rainy night in Seattle. Sometimes the most human thing you can do is choose to help.